it's amazing to me that, songwriting is done pretty much in solitude.
At my age, when I get up in the morning, just the thought of being able to sit down later on in the afternoon.
A plane carrying some of gospel music's most beloved legends plummeted from the sky in rural Wyoming. 7 souls were aboard that small aircraft, and tragically none survived. Just hours before the crash, they had posted a careful video on Instagram full of smiles, laughter, and excitement as they prepared to join Bill Gaither's highly anticipated Alaska cruise. That innocent, joyful clip would tragically become their last. In the aftermath, Bill Gaither, the 88-year-old titan of gospel music, remained completely silent. Absolute silence. For months, he said nothing. Not a word, not even a brief acknowledgement of the devastating loss. And when he finally broke that silence, what he revealed shocked even his most devoted fans. But here's the thing many people don't realize. This tragedy is only a fragment of a much larger, more complex story. It's a story about an empire built on faith, about Amon who has been celebrated as a saint and criticized as a sellout, and about secrets that have remained hidden for decades. Today, we are going to uncover the full truth about Bill Gaither, the controversies, the criticism, the unimaginable loss, and what his Responsido tragedy truly reveals about him. By the end of this video, you will see him in a way you never have before. This story runs deep, and it's not easy to hear. Picture a sunny summer day in Nebraska City, Nebraska. The weather is perfect, warm, and inviting. The Nellan family, Kelly Nellan Clark, her husband Jason Clark, and their daughter Amber Nellan Kistler, are standing outside Asmal Plain recording a video for their Instagram followers. There is a genuine excitement in their voices and smiles, a kind of giddy anticipation only performers know when they are about to take the stage. In just a few days, they would be performing on Bill Gaither's prestigious Alaska cruise, joining gospel music's biggest names. Kelly jokes for the camera, her eyes sparkling with joy. Amber smiles, that radiant, heartwarming smile audiences had come to love. Jason waves, relaxed and happy, talking about grabbing a bite to eat before their next flight to Montana. It's a simple, ordinary family moment. One of those everyday snippets we all post on social media without a second thought. And yet, they had no idea this would be the last time they shared such a moment. The aircraft, a Pilates PC-12, carried 7 people in total. When it went down in Campbell County, Wyoming, the crash was catastrophic. The impact was so severe that a massive fire erupted and firefighters had to battle through the night just to bring it under control. The location of the crash was extremely remote, so isolated that investigators could not reach the wreckage immediately. They had to carefully plan how to access the area, essentially in the middle of nowhere. Meanwhile, the gospel music community was left reeling, struggling to process the news and anxiously waiting for answers that seemed impossibly slow to arrive. Kelly Nellan Clark wasn't just another gospel singer. She was gospel royalty. The Nellans had been inducted into the Gospel Music Hall of Fame in 2016 and had achieved remarkable success. 20 songs reached the top 50 gospel charts, 10 Dove Awards, and a total of 35 nominations. Their most recent Dove Award had come just 3 years before the crash. In 2021, Jason had joined the group in 1994, and Amber followed in 2002, continuing the multi-generational legacy that had defined the Nellans from the very beginning. They weren't just talented musicians. They were beloved figures who had touched countless lives with their music. The tragedy is even more heart-wrenching when you consider this. Kelly's youngest daughter, Autumn Nellan Streetman, and her husband Jamie were not on that flight. They had traveled separately to Seattle, taking a different route. That split-second decision saved their lives. Now, imagine the moment you arrive in Seattle, excited about an upcoming cruise, ready to perform with your family. Perhaps you are checking into your hotel, text into your mom to see when she'll arrive. Then someone from the Gaither organization finds you and delivers news that shatters your world. Your mother, father, and sister are gone. Not injured, not in a hospital. They are gone, killed instantly. Your entire family, wiped out in a single devastating moment. The Gospel Music Association released a statement expressing profound sorrow over the loss. Jackie Patillo, the association's president, sent condolences and prayers to Autumn and the entire Nellan family. The governor of Georgia also called for public prayers for the victims. Gospel artists from across the country gathered at the Seattle hotel where Autumn and Hammy had arrived, surrounding them with support, prayers, and songs, doing the only thing they knew how to do in the face of incomprehensible tragedy. They sang, they prayed, they wept together. Eventually, Autumn and Janie returned home to be with Kelly's brother, Todd Nellan, and his wife Rhonda, beginning the painful and almost impossible process of facing the aftermath, planning 3 funerals, sorting through personal belongings, and wrestling with a haunting question that has known her. Why? Through it all, Bill Gaither had not said a word. For weeks, then months, he remained silent. People started to wonder. Some were patient, understanding that grief takes different forms. And perhaps Bill needed time to process his own feelings. Others were less charitable, questioning why the man who organized the cruise, who had known the Nellans for decades, remained publicly silent. The speculation grew, questions multiplied, and the longer the silence lasted, the higher the expectations for his eventual statement. Several months after the crash, Bill Gaither finally released a touching video tribute to the Nellans. Carefully crafted, it was filled with photographs and video clips spanning decades. In it, Bill reflected on special moments he had shared with the family over the years. His voice, warm with affection, yet heavy with loss, recounted memories from when Kelly's father, Rex Nellan, first appeared on a Gaither stage in the early days. He spoke about watching little Amber grow up, transformed from a child following her family into a confident performer in her own right. He shared stories of inside jokes, long rehearsals, and spontaneous worship moments backstage. He reminisced about the final days together, the last time he saw them, the last conversations they had. His words reflected the way he had always tried to find meaning in tragedy, pointing people toward hope. Even when hope felt impossible, the week Bill finally broke his silence was also significant, because it marked the first time Autumn Nellan Street Man joined the Gaithers for a new taping since the crash. Imagine the courage it took to step into a studio filled with gospel music's biggest names, knowing your mother, father, and sister should have been there, their empty spots glaringly obvious. Being there without them must have been almost unbearably painful. Yet, it also represented a critical step forward. A statement that life, even in its heartbreak, must somehow continue. As expected, Bill Gaither described the tragedy as part of God's plan. He spoke of divine sovereignty, trusting God even when events defy understanding, and the promise that all things work together for good for those who love Him. For many fans, this message provided a framework for processing tragedy, a way to maintain faith despite senseless loss. It reassured them that God had not lost control, abandoned anyone, or made a mistake. But for others, His words felt insufficient, even offensive. How could a loving God plan for 3 talented, faithful people who dedicated their lives to ministry to die? Faithful people who dedicated their lives to ministry to die in a fury plane crash. This prompted a theological debate, highlighting a fundamental divide in how Christians process tragedy. And Bill Gaither found himself at the center of that debate. What this episode revealed about Bill Gaither is crucial. Throughout his career, he has been more than a musician. He has become a theological voice for millions. When he speaks, people listen. When he interprets tragedy through the lens of faith, countless Christians shape their own understanding of suffering around his words. This influence carries enormous responsibility and scrutiny. Speak too much about God's plan, and you risk sounding callous. Say too little and people might think you've lost faith. Bill chose his words carefully, but he could never satisfy everyone. And here's something else you need to understand. Bill Gaither is not just any gospel singer. At 88, he stands as one of the few figures in gospel music to have built a true empire. A legacy that has made him both celebrated and controversial for decades. His life and career are entwined with immense triumphs, unimaginable loss, and an enduring impact on millions of listeners and performers alike. Let me ask you something. When does ministry cross the line into business? When does the act of sharing the gospel transform into selling the gospel? These are not simple questions, and they have shadowed Bill Gaither throughout his long career. What began as humble church gatherings eventually became something far larger, but not without scrutiny and controversy along the way. Bill Gaither's homecoming concert started in an incredibly modest fashion. They were small church events where quartets would sing and attendees would drop donations into a bucket. Nobody was getting rich. It was pure ministry driven entirely by faith and a desire to share the joy of gospel music. But then something remarkable happened. The homecoming concept exploded. What began as simple gatherings evolved into massive productions. Arenas capable of holding thousands of people became the new stage. Professional lighting rigs, giant video screens, multiple camera crews, and sound engineers became standard. The lobbies of these events transformed into bustling marketplaces. Tables overflowed with CDs, mugs, t-shirts, song books, everything branded, everything priced. Critics, especially from smaller churches, began to argue that gospel music had become an expensive spectacle. They remembered the days when quartets sang for love offerings and worried that families on tight budgets were now being priced out. One newsletter went so far as to call it Gather Money Machine. Bill Gaither did not back down. He responded openly, explaining the financial realities behind these massive productions. Renting a 15,000-seat arena comes with enormous costs. Union workers need to be paid. Insurance is astronomical. Advanced ticket sales are necessary to avoid crippling debt. But what critics often overlook is that a significant portion of the profits went toward funding new recordings for emerging artists, providing music scholarships, supporting mission work, and preserving gospel music history. Bill argued that sound business practices were not a compromise. They were the tools that allowed ministry to reach a larger audience. Over time, tensions eased. While ticket prices remained, additional seating options like cheaper upper-level tickets and group discounts for churches were introduced. Despite the debates, attendance continued to thrive. Arenas still filled up, proving that for most fans, the trade-off made sense. Better sound, comfortable seating, and professional production enhanced the experience, but the message remained paramount. However, if the commercialization controversy was divisive, what happened in Phoenix in 2002 escalated tensions to a new level. Bill and Gloria Gaither organized a homecoming gathering, bringing together gospel singers to share songs and personal stories. One guest, Marcia Stevens, was famous for a beloved worship song she wrote decades earlier. Years after her initial success, Marcia came out as gay and began leading worship in churches that affirmed same-sex relationships. When photos from the Phoenix event circulated, showing Bill and Gloria smiling next to Marcia and her partner, conservative newsletters erupted. Christian magazines were flooded with angry letters. Pastors urged congregations to boycott Gaither videos. Some accused Bill of being soft on sin, claiming he was compromising biblical truth. Bill's response was remarkably calm. He explained that inviting someone to perform at a homecoming event was about showing Christian love, not endorsing every aspect of their personal life. He reminded critics that Jesus often shared meals with people whose choices upset religious leaders. Bill made a crucial point. While he affirmed his traditional view of marriage, he also emphasized treating every guest with kindness and respect. He argued that it is possible to hold firm theological convictions while practicing radical hospitality. Most fans accepted this